The great meeting hall of Nexus Prime was filled with worried voices. Beings from across the galaxy sat in their special chairs, each one made for their different body types. Some had 4 arms, others had no arms at all. Some breathed air, others breathed strange gases that glowed in the dark. But today, they all had the same fear. Ambassador Taman stood at the center of the room. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors when he felt strong emotions. Right now, he was bright red with worry. "We have lost another ship," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "The exploration vessel Starfinder went into human space 3 days ago. We have heard nothing since then." The room became very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. It was the same story they had heard many times before. Captain Bora of the Defense Fleet stood up. She was tall and blue, with 6 eyes that could see in all directions. "That makes 12 ships in 50 years, she said. 12 ships that went into human space and never came back. "No emergency signals," added Commander Wusik from his floating chair. His people lived in water, so he wore a special suit filled with liquid. "No pieces of broken ships. No bodies. Nothing at all." The other beings in the room started talking loudly. Some were angry, some were scared. All of them wanted answers. "Silence," called out the council leader. She was very old and very wise. Her people lived for thousands of years, so she had seen many strange things. But even she looked worried. "Let us remember how this all started." Everyone became quiet again. They all knew the story, but they needed to hear it again. 50 years ago, the council leader continued, "We met the humans for the first time. Captain Dongu was flying his ship called Morning Glory when our scout ships found him near the edge of their space." Biora remembered reading the reports. The first meeting with humans had seemed normal. The humans were friendly enough. They could talk and think just like other smart species in the galaxy. Their technology was not very good, but that was normal for new species. The humans seemed ordinary, said Dr. Hyojin, the council's expert on alien life. She was small and green, with very large eyes that helped her study other species. They had just learned how to travel faster than light. Their ships were simple. Their weapons were basic. They did not seem dangerous at all. But then they made their request, Taman said, his crystal body turning a dark blue color. "They asked us to stay away from their space. They said it was for our own safety." Many beings in the room made sounds of confusion. They still did not understand why humans would say such a thing. "At first, we thought it was funny," continued Dr. Hyojin. "Here were these simple humans, telling the mighty Galactic Council to stay away from them. We had ships that could destroy planets. We had weapons that could cut through stars. What could these humans possibly do to hurt us?" Commander Jacko, who had metal skin and 3 heads, spoke up. "My people laughed the loudest. We are warriors. We have never found a species we could not defeat. The idea that weak humans could be dangerous seemed like a joke. But the humans did not laugh," said the council leader. Captain Dongwu looked very sad when he made his request. He said the same thing over and over. "Please, for your own safety, do not come to our space." The room was quiet again. Everyone remembered how strange that meeting had been. "The humans never tried to hurt us," said Biora. "They never pointed weapons at our ships. They never made threats. They just asked us to stay away. But there was something in their eyes." "Fear," said Dr. Hyde, "but not fear of us. They were afraid for us." Taman's crystal body flashed bright white. "That should have been our first warning sign. But we did not listen." The story continued. After the first meeting, some species decided to test the humans. Small ships were sent to explore human space. The ships had the best sensors, the strongest shields, and the smartest crews. None of them came back. "The first ship was from my people," said Captain Morden. "He was covered in thick fur and had claws like knives. The Ice Hunter was our finest ship. Captain Yulki was our best explorer. We sent them to map human space and see what the humans were hiding." 3 days later, the ship stopped sending messages, continued Morden. "We sent more ships to look for them. Those ships also disappeared. Soon, we lost 5 ships in total." Other species had similar stories. The bird-like Vex people lost 2 ships. The rock people called Granite lost 3 ships. The energy beings known as Light Dancers lost 1 ship that was made of pure energy and should have been impossible to destroy. "Every time, the same thing happened," said Biora. "The ships would enter human space. They would send back normal reports for a day or 2. Then nothing. No battles," added Wusik. "No explosions. No signs of fighting. The ships just stopped existing." Dr. Hyojin pulled up a big screen that showed a map of the galaxy. A red line marked the edge of human space. "We have studied this area for 50 years. Our best scientists have used our most powerful tools to scan human space." The screen showed waves of energy and strange signals coming from human territory. But the signals made no sense. They did not match any known technology. "Every time we try to study these energy patterns, our equipment breaks," said Dr. Hyojin. "Not damaged, not destroyed. It just stops working, as if it forgets how to be a machine." Commander Yulbin, who had purple skin and could read minds, spoke for the first time. I have tried to sense the thoughts of humans when they come to our space for trade meetings, but I cannot read their minds. It is not that they are blocking me. It is like their thoughts exist in a place my mind cannot reach. This sent a chill through the room. Yulbin could read the thoughts of every known species in the galaxy. She could even read the minds of computers and artificial intelligences. But human minds were blank to her. That is why we created the human exclusion zone, said the council leader. We told our people it was because of dangerous space storms and broken stars. But the real reason, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Everyone in the room knew the real reason. Fear. Simple fear of something they could not understand. The humans still come to our space sometimes, said Taman. They trade with us. They are polite and kind. They never threaten anyone. But they always ask the same question. Has anyone tried to enter our space? And when we say no, they look relieved. What are they hiding? Asked Captain Morden. What could be so dangerous that they want to protect us from it? Dr. Hyojin looked at the screen again. The energy readings from human space were getting stronger every year. Whatever was in there was growing more powerful. I do not know, she said quietly, but I am afraid we are going to find out soon. Outside the meeting hall, space was dark and full of stars. Somewhere in that darkness was human space, quiet and forbidden. And somewhere in human space, something was watching. Admiral Kyung-ho slammed his fist on the metal table. The sound echoed through his private room on the massive warship Eternal Dominion. His red eyes burned with anger as he read the council's latest message. Stay away from human space, he said, his voice full of hate. Do not test the humans. Keep the peace. The admiral was not like other beings in the galaxy. He belonged to the Nexari, a race of warriors who had never lost a battle. They were tall and strong, with thick gray skin that could stop bullets. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and made slaves of dozens of species. The idea that weak humans could scare the mighty Nexari made him furious. Commander Subin stood nearby, watching her admiral with worry. She was smaller than most Nexari, but her mind was sharp. She had won many battles by being smart, not just strong. Admiral, she said carefully, maybe we should think about this more. 12 ships have disappeared in human space. That is not normal. Kyung-ho turned to look at her. His face was covered with scars from old battles. You think I am afraid of humans? I think we do not understand what happened to those ships, Subin replied. The math does not make sense. What are the chances that 12 ships would all have accidents in the same area? The admiral walked to the big window that showed space outside. He could see his war fleet spread out in all directions. 2,000 heavy warships, 500 giant battleships, weapons that could turn planets into dust. The chances are 0, he said. Someone is destroying those ships. But it is not the humans. Subin frowned. What do you mean? Think about it, Kyung-ho said, turning back to face her. We have seen human ships. They are small and weak. Their weapons are basic. Their shields are nothing compared to ours. How could they destroy 12 exploration ships without leaving any trace? He walked over to a computer screen and brought up pictures of human ships. They looked simple and plain compared to the beautiful, deadly ships of other species. No, the admiral continued, someone else is in human space. Someone powerful. The humans are probably slaves, just like we will make them when we conquer their masters. Subin was not convinced. But Admiral, what if we are wrong? What if there is something else going on? Kyung-ho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. I have been fighting for 60 years. I have seen every trick, every trap, every weapon in the galaxy. There is nothing that can scare the Nexari war fleet. He pressed a button on his desk. Immediately, his voice was heard on every ship in the fleet. Warriors of the Nexari Empire, he said, his voice strong and proud. Today we end the mystery of human space. We will find whoever is hiding there. We will crush them. We will take their technology and add it to our own power. The cheers of thousands of Nexari warriors echoed through the communication system. They were excited for battle. They had been waiting in space for months, with nothing to fight. Subin tried one more time. Admiral, the Galactic Council has forbidden this mission. If we attack human space without permission, the Council are cowards, Kyung-ho said, cutting her off. They sit in their meeting rooms and talk while real warriors do the hard work. When we return with new technology and slaves, they will thank us. Within hours, the massive Nexari war fleet began moving toward human space. The ships moved in perfect formation, like a great metal cloud drifting through the stars. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Commander Subin watched the sensors. Everything looked normal. Space was empty and quiet. How long until we reach the human border? Asked the Admiral. 6 hours, replied Navigator Hein. He was young for a Nexari warrior, but he was very good at flying ships through space. Good. As soon as we cross into human space, I want all sensors scanning for ships, bases, and planets. I want to know everything that moves in that area. Subin looked at the communications panel. Officer Moran was trying to send messages back to Nexari space, but something was wrong. Commander Moran said, her voice worried, I cannot reach our home base. The quantum communicators are not working properly. Subin felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Quantum communicators were supposed to work anywhere in the galaxy. They could send messages across impossible distances, even through different dimensions. Try again, she ordered. Miran worked at her controls for several minutes. Finally, she looked up with fear in her eyes. It is not working. It is like we are cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Kyunho was not worried. Space storms can interfere with communications. It will work again when we leave this area. But Subin was not so sure. She had never heard of space storms that could block quantum signals. As they got closer to human space, strange things began to happen. The sensors started showing impossible readings. Sometimes they would detect a huge object in space, but when they looked with their eyes, nothing was there. Admiral called out Science Officer Janae. The gravity sensors are acting strange. They show gravity pulling in directions that do not exist. What do you mean? Asked Kyung-ho. Janae looked confused. According to these readings, gravity is pulling up, down, left, right, forward, backward, and also in 3 other directions that our computers cannot name. The Admiral frowned. That made no sense. Gravity was a simple force. It pulled objects toward each other. It did not pull in directions that did not exist. Suddenly, Navigator Hyanwoo called out, Admiral, we have crossed into human space. Everyone on the bridge looked at the main screen. They expected to see human ships rushing to attack them. They expected to see space stations and defense platforms. Instead, they saw nothing. Human space looked completely empty. There were no colonies, no space stations, no asteroid mines, just empty black space with distant stars. Where are they? Asked the Admiral. Sensors detect a few small ships, reported Janae. They appear to be moving away from us. Running away, Kyung-ho smiled. Good, they know they cannot fight us. Follow those ships. They will lead us to their hidden bases. But Subin was watching the sensor readings more carefully. The human ships were not running in panic. They were moving in a pattern, almost like they were leading the Nexari fleet somewhere specific. Admiral, she said slowly, I think those ships want us to follow them. Of course they do, laughed Kyung-ho. They are leading us into a trap. But no trap can stop the Nexari war fleet. As they followed the human ships deeper into human space, more strange things happened. Some of the Nexari escort ships began reporting problems with their engines. The engines were working fine, but the ships were moving in ways that the engines were not telling them to move. Then the first ship disappeared. The Thunder Strike was flying on the left side of the formation. One moment, it was there, sending normal reports. The next moment, the space where it had been was empty. What happened to Thunderstrike? Demanded the Admiral. Moran checked her communications. They are not answering. Their signal just ... stopped. Did they explode? Did someone attack them? Janae looked at her sensors. No explosion, no energy weapons, no debris. The ship is just gone. Subin felt the cold feeling in her stomach get worse. Admiral, maybe we should. She was interrupted by another report. The Iron Fist had also disappeared. Then the Death Dealer. Then 3 more ships. In the space of 1 hour, they lost 20 ships. Each time, the same thing happened. The ships were there, then they were not. No explosions, no battles, no wreckage. This is impossible, said Admiral Kyung-ho, but for the first time, his voice showed a little fear. Subin looked at the tactical display. The human ships were still moving ahead of them, still leading them deeper into human space. But now she could see the truth. They were not chasing the humans. The humans were hurting them, like farmers driving sheep into a pen. The small human ships were guiding the mighty Nexari war fleet exactly where they wanted them to go. Admiral Subin, said her voice quiet but urgent, we need to turn around, right now. But when Navigator Hyanwoo tried to change course, nothing happened. The ships kept moving in the same direction, following the human vessels deeper into the mysterious empty space. They were no longer in control of their own fleet, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, something was waiting for them. Captain Jinwoo sat in his chair on the bridge of the human ship. Quiet dawn. The ship was small compared to the giant Nexari warships, but it moved through space in ways that seemed impossible. Sometimes it would be in one place, then suddenly appear somewhere else without seeming to travel the distance between. The big ships are following us perfectly, said Engineer The Jin from her station. She was young, but her eyes looked much older than her face. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from far away, even though she was sitting right there. Jin-Woo nodded. He had been watching the Nexari fleet for hours. Now, the alien warriors thought they were chasing weak human ships. They had no idea that the humans were leading them exactly where they wanted them to go. How many of their ships have we moved? Asked Jinwoo. 57 so far, replied the Jin. We are being very careful. We do not want to scare them too much, too fast. To anyone watching, it would look like the Nexari ships were simply disappearing. But the truth was much stranger. The humans were gently moving the ships to a different place, a place where they would be safe, but could not interfere with what was about to happen. Navigator Wu Jin turned in his chair. When he moved, it seemed like parts of him stayed in the old position for a moment before catching up. The main fleet will reach the meeting point in 2 hours, he said. Jinwu sighed. He did not want to do what came next. But the Nexari had forced this situation by bringing weapons into human space. Send a message to Dr. Yunbai on the deep memory, he said. Tell her we will need her help soon. Jin closed her eyes. She did not use a radio or computer to send the message. Instead, her thoughts reached across space instantly, touching the mind of Dr. Yunbai on another human ship far away. A moment later, the Jin opened her eyes. She knows. She is preparing her team. Jinwu looked out at the stars. 50 years ago, those stars had looked normal to human eyes. Now, when he looked at them, he could see much more. He could see the layers of reality stacked on top of each other like sheets of paper. He could see the places where normal space touched other dimensions, and he could see the others. The others were always there, moving through the spaces between realities. They were not evil, but they were so different from normal life that most minds could not understand them without breaking. 50 years ago, when humans first traveled to the stars, they had met the others by accident. Most species who made that contact were destroyed or driven insane. But humans did something different that they learned. They adapted, they changed. Captain, said Wu Jin, the Nexari admiral is trying to contact us. Jinwu was not surprised. The alien fleet had lost many ships now, and their leader was probably getting scared. Put him on screen, Jinwu said. The main screen showed Admiral Kyungho on the bridge of his flagship. The Nexari looked angry and confused. Behind him, Jinwu could see other aliens running around, trying to understand what was happening to their fleet. Human ship, said the admiral, I demand that you explain what is happening to my vessels. Jinwu looked at the alien warrior. With sadness, the admiral could not see it, but Jinwu existed in several dimensions at once. Part of him was sitting in the chair on his ship's bridge. Part of him was floating in the space between realities. Part of him was touching the minds of the others, learning their ancient thoughts. Admiral Kyungho, Jinwu said, you were warned not to come here. Your own Galactic Council told you to stay away from human space. I am not afraid of humans, snarled the admiral. What technology are you using to make my ships disappear? Jinwu almost smiled. The admiral still thought this was about technology. He still believed that humans were using some kind of advanced machines to fight them. We are not using technology, Jinwu said gently. We are using something much older than any machine. On the screen, Admiral Kyungho looked confused. What are you talking about? 50 years ago, my people discovered that reality is much larger than we thought, Jinwu explained. We learned that there are other dimensions, other ways of existing. We made contact with beings who live in those other places. Impossibly, said the admiral. No species has ever made contact with higher dimensional beings. Most species cannot, agreed Jinwu. When other species meet the others, their minds break. They go insane or die. But humans, we are stubborn. Instead of breaking, we learn to change. Engineer the Jin spoke up from her station. Captain, we are approaching the meeting point. Jinwu nodded. He looked back at Admiral Kyungho on the screen. Admiral, I am going to show you something. But I want you to understand, we are not doing this to hurt you. We are doing this to help you understand why you must leave our space. Before the admiral could reply, Jinwu gave a signal to his crew. The space around both ships suddenly changed. Admiral Kyungho and his crew found themselves looking at something that should not exist. The stars were still there, but now they could see layers of reality stacked like transparent sheets. They could see beings of pure energy moving between the layers. They could see spaces that were bigger on the inside than the outside, and they could see the others. The others were beautiful and terrible. They looked like living mathematics, like thoughts that had learned to exist without brains to think them. They moved through dimensions that human language had no words for. On the Nexari ship, several crew members started screaming. The sight of the others was too much for their minds to handle. They could not understand what they were seeing, and their brains began to shut down to protect themselves. Make it stop, shouted Admiral Kyungho. Make it stop. Jinwu immediately returned everything to normal. The extra dimensions disappeared from view. The others became invisible again. Space looked like regular space, but the damage was done. Half of the Nexari crew was unconscious. The other half was shaking with fear. That is why we stay alone, Jinwu said quietly. That is why we asked everyone to stay away from our space. We can see those things all the time now. We can talk to them. We can understand them, but you cannot. Admiral Kyungho was breathing hard. His red eyes were wide with terror. What? What were those things? The others, Jinwu replied. They have always been there, moving through the spaces between realities. Most species never see them, but we do. We see them every day. We have learned to exist in the same space as them. Dr. Yunbai's voice came through the ship's communication system. She was speaking from the deep memory, but her words reached everyone's minds directly. 50 years ago, she said, when we first met the others, we had a choice. We could go insane like most species do, or we could learn to become something new. We chose to change. The process was not easy, continued Dr. Yun. We had to learn to think in ways that normal minds cannot think. We had to learn to exist in multiple dimensions at once. We had to learn to touch the thoughts of beings that exist outside of time. Jinwoo looked at Admiral Kyungho with pity. We are no longer completely human. We are something new, something that can exist safely alongside the others. But the change came with a price. What price? Asked the Admiral, though he seemed afraid to hear the answer. We can never go back, Jinwoo said. We can never again be the simple, three-dimensional beings we once were, and we can never live safely among other species, because our very presence would drive them insane. Engineer, the Jin spoke up again. Captain, more Nexari ships are approaching our position. Jinwoo sighed. He had hoped that showing the Admiral the truth would be enough, but it seemed like the Nexari leader was still thinking about fighting. Admiral Jinwoo said one last time, please order your fleet to leave our space. We do not want to hurt you, but we cannot let you stay here. The others are always watching. If you remain in our space too long, they will try to communicate with you directly, and that communication will destroy your minds. Admiral Kyungho looked around his bridge. His crew was slowly recovering from seeing the others, but they all looked scared and confused. What if I refused? He asked. Jinwoo's expression became very sad. Then we will have to show you what we have become, and I promise you, Admiral, you do not want to see that. The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Quiet Dawn in silence. Navigator Wu Jin looked at his captain. Do you think he will listen? Jinwoo shook his head. No, he is too proud. He will try to fight us. Then we will have to stop him, said Da Jin. Yes, Jinwoo agreed, but gently. We must remember what we once were, even as we use what we have become. Outside, the Nexari fleet was gathering for what they thought would be a final battle. They had no idea that the battle was already over. They just did not know it. Yet, Admiral Kyungho stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the screen where the human captain had been moments before. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger. Impossible, he said through his teeth. Humans cannot have that kind of power. Commander Suben walked up to him carefully. She had seen what happened to the crew members who looked at the strange beings in space. Some were still unconscious. Others were awake but would not stop crying. Admiral, she said quietly, maybe we should listen to them. Maybe we should leave. Kyungho turned to look at her. His red eyes burned with fury. I am Admiral of the Nexari Empire. I do not run from anyone, especially not from weak humans. But, even as he said it, he knew something was very wrong. Half of his fleet was gone. His remaining ships were reporting strange problems with their engines and computers, and the things he had seen in space. Those impossible beings. Science. Officer Janae, he called out. What is your analysis of what we just saw? Janae looked up from her station. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. Admiral, according to all known science, what we saw cannot exist. Beings cannot live in multiple dimensions at once. Space cannot have more than 3 normal directions. But we saw it, said Subin. Yes, Janae agreed. We saw it, which means either our understanding of reality is completely wrong, or, she did not finish the sentence, but everyone knew what she was thinking, or the humans were telling the truth. Suddenly, Communications Officer Mirin called out in panic. Admiral, the human ships are coming back. On the main screen, they could see 3 small human vessels approaching. The ships moved in ways that hurt the brain to watch. Sometimes they seemed to be far away, then suddenly they were close. Sometimes, they appeared to be moving slowly, but they covered vast distances in seconds. All ships, prepare for battle, ordered Admiral Kyungho. Target those human ships and fire everything we have. But when the Nexari weapons fired, something impossible happened. The energy beams and missiles simply stopped in space. They hung there like frozen lightning, not moving forward or backward. Then one of the human ships appeared directly in front of the Nexari flagship. Not flew there, not traveled there. It simply existed there suddenly, as if it had always been in that spot. A communication channel opened, and Captain Jinwoo appeared on screen again. But now, he looked different. When he moved, parts of him seemed to exist in places where there was no body. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from several directions at once. Admiral Jinwoo said, and his voice carried sadness that felt as deep as space itself. You have forced us to show you what we have become. We did not want to do this. I am not afraid of your tricks, snarled Admiral Kyung-Ho. Jinwoo looked at him with eyes that seemed to see much more than a normal person should be able to see. These are not tricks, Admiral. This is what contact with the others has made us. Another voice joined the conversation. It was Engineer Chanho from the human ship Silent Thunder. When he appeared on screen, the Nexari crew gasped. Chanho's body seemed to be made of both solid matter and something else that had no name. He existed in the normal world and in other dimensions at the same time. Watch carefully, Chen-Ho said gently. We will show you what we can do, but we will not hurt you. Chen-Ho raised his hand and pointed at one of the smaller Nexari warships. The ship was called Iron Crusher and had enough weapons to destroy a small planet. Chen-Ho made a simple gesture, like he was gently pulling apart two pieces of paper. The Iron Crusher began to come apart, but it was not being destroyed. Every bolt, every piece of metal, every wire was being carefully separated and set free. The ship dissolved like sugar in water, but instead of disappearing, every piece floated safely in space. The crew of the Iron Crusher found themselves floating in spacesuits that appeared around them at the exact moment their ship came apart. They were not hurt, they were not even scared. They were just floating safely in space, watching their ship become a cloud of separate parts. Impossible, whispered Science Officer Jin. You cannot take apart a ship like that. The atomic bonds alone, ... We are not taking it apart, explained Chen-Ho. We are asking the ship to remember what it was like before it was built. We are showing it how to return to its original pieces. Admiral Kyungo stared at the floating parts of the warship. Each piece was perfectly clean and undamaged. The crew was safe, but the ship no longer existed as a ship. How? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. A third human appeared on screen. It was Dr. Hayane from the research vessel, Deep Memory. When she spoke, her words seemed to reach directly into the minds of everyone listening. 50 years ago, she said, we learned that reality is not solid. Everything that exists is really just information, patterns of energy that have learned to hold their shape. When you understand this, you can talk to those patterns. You can ask them to change. We can ask them to change. We did not destroy your ship, added Chen-Ho. We simply had a conversation with it. We asked it politely to become separate pieces instead of one big machine. Commander Subin looked at the sensor readings. According to the instruments, the floating debris should be spreading out and drifting away. Instead, every piece was staying exactly where it had been when the ship came apart. The crew, she said, how are they breathing in space? Dr. Hayane smiled. We asked space itself to provide them with air and warmth. Space agreed. Admiral Kyunko felt something he had never felt before in his life. Complete helplessness. He commanded the most powerful warfleet in the galaxy, but these humans were treating his mighty ships like toys. What do you want? He asked. Captain Jinwoo answered. We want you to understand. We want you to see why we asked everyone to stay away from our space. You are trying to scare us, said the Admiral. No, Jinwoo replied. We are trying to protect you. What you have seen so far is nothing compared to what the others can do. We have learned to exist safely with them, but you cannot. On another screen, Engineer the Jin from the Quiet Dawn appeared. When she spoke, reality around the Nexari ships began to change again. The others are always here, she said. They move through dimensions that your minds cannot understand. They communicate in ways that would drive normal beings insane. We have learned to hear their voices without losing our minds. As she spoke, the Nexari crew began to see glimpses of the others again. But this time, the humans were filtering what they saw, showing them only tiny pieces of the truth. Even those small glimpses made several Nexari soldiers faint. We are no longer human, continued that Jin. We are something new, something that exists in normal space and in the spaces between realities. We can touch the thoughts of beings that live outside of time. We can ask reality itself to change, and it listens to us. Admiral Kyungho looked around his bridge. His crew was terrified. His fleet was being taken apart piece by piece, but none of his people were being hurt. The humans were being more gentle with them than he had ever been. With any enemy. Why? He asked. Why are you showing mercy to invaders? Captain Jinwoo's expression became very sad. Because we remember what it was like to be as you are now. We remember being afraid of things we did not understand. We remember thinking that strength came from weapons and violence. The others taught us something different, added Dr. Hayane. They showed us that true strength comes from understanding, from being willing to change when change is needed. We became their students, said Chen. We learned to see reality as they see it. We learned to exist as they exist, but we also chose to remember our humanity. We chose to keep caring about other species, even though we can no longer live among them. Admiral Kyungho felt his anger drain away. In its place came something much worse, understanding. You could destroy us all, he said. Isley agreed. Jinwoo, we could make your entire fleet disappear with a thought. We could ask the atoms in your bodies to reorganize themselves. We could transport you to dimensions where time flows backward. But we will not, said that Jin, because we remember what it was like to be afraid. We remember what it was like to not understand. Commander Subin spoke up. What happens now? Captain Jinwoo looked at her with kindness. Now, you return to your space. You tell the Galactic Council what you have seen. You help them understand why our space must remain forbidden, and if others refuse to listen. Asked Su-Bin. Jinwoo's expression became very serious. Then we will stop them, just as we have stopped you, but we will do it gently, with mercy. We will never forget what we once were. Admiral Kyunho looked at his ruined fleet, his scared crew, his broken pride. For the first time in his life, he had met beings who were truly more powerful than the Nexari, and they had shown him mercy. "I understand," he said quietly. "Good," said Jinwoo. "Now go home, Admiral. Go home and help your people understand." The human ships began to fade from view, not by moving away, but by existing less and less until they were gone. The Nexari fleet found itself gently pushed back toward the edge of human space, moving without their engines, guided by forces they could not see or understand. Behind them, in the depths of human space, the others continued their eternal dance between dimensions. And the humans watched over them all, guardians transformed by contact with the infinite protectors who had given up their place in normal reality to keep the galaxy. 3 days later, Admiral Kung Ho stood before the Galactic Council. His once proud uniform was wrinkled and stained. His red eyes, which had always burned with confidence, now looked tired and sad. The great meeting hall was completely silent. Every being in the room stared at the Admiral, waiting to hear what had happened to the mighty Nexari warfleet. "We found them," Kung Ho said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We found the humans." Ambassador Taemin leaned forward in his crystal chair. "What did you discover? What technology do they possess?" The Admiral looked down at his hands. "They do not have technology. They have become something else." Council leader raised one ancient eyebrow. Explained. For the next hour, Admiral Kung Ho told the council everything. He described how his ships had disappeared, one by one. He told them about the impossible beings called the Others. He explained how the humans had taken apart an entire warship, without hurting a single crew member. When he finished speaking, the hall remained silent for a long time. Finally, Dr. Hyojin spoke up. "Are you saying that humans can manipulate reality itself?" "Yes," the Admiral replied, "but they do not use this power to conquer or destroy. They use it to protect." "Protect what?" asked Captain Bo-Ra. Admiral Kung Ho looked up at her. "Us. They protect us from the Others. They protect us from truths that would drive us insane." Commander Subin, who had accompanied her admiral to the council meeting, stood up. "May I speak?" The council leader nodded. "I have studied the reports. From our encounter," Subin said, "the humans could have destroyed our entire fleet in seconds. Instead, they showed us mercy. They gently pushed us back to safe space and made sure none of our people were hurt." "But why?" asked Ambassador Taemin. "If they have such power, why do they hide from us?" Subin looked around the room. "Because they remember what it was like to be as we are now. They remember being normal beings who could not understand higher dimensions. They quarantined themselves to protect our sanity." Captain Morden, whose people had lost ships to human space years ago, spoke up. "What happened to my crews? What happened to all the beings who disappeared in human space?" Admiral Kung Ho's expression brightened slightly. "They are safe. The humans have been keeping them in a special place where they cannot be harmed by contact with the Others. They will be returned to us soon." As if summoned by his words, a communication channel opened in the center of the room. The air itself seemed to shimmer, and then Captain Jinwoo appeared. But he was not really there. His image was being projected across impossible distances by methods the council could not understand. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Jinwoo said. His voice was calm and kind. "We have been waiting for this conversation for 50 years. The council members stared at the human captain. Up close, they could see what Admiral Kung Ho meant. Jinwoo looked human, but there was something else about him. He seemed to exist in the room and somewhere else at the same time. "We have your people," Jinwoo continued. "All the crews from the ships that entered our space over the years. They are unharmed, but they needed to be kept separate from us to protect their minds." "Where are they?" demanded Captain Morden. "In a place we call the Safe Harbor." Gin replied, "It exists in normal space, but it is shielded from the dimensions where the Others live. Your people have been living there comfortably, waiting for the day when we could explain the truth." Another human appeared beside Jinwoo. It was Dr. Dayun from the diplomatic vessel Peaceful Resolution. When she spoke, her words seemed to reach directly into the minds of everyone in the room. "We want to show you something," she said, "but we will be very careful. We will only show you a tiny piece, so your minds can handle it." The air in the meeting hall began to change. For just a moment, the council members could see beyond normal space. They saw layers of reality stacked like sheets of glass. They saw the Others moving between dimensions, beautiful and terrible beings of pure thought and energy. But the vision lasted only a few seconds, and the humans carefully controlled what the council could see. Even so, several beings in the room fainted from the shock. "That is why we stay alone," said Dr. Dayun. "That is what we see every moment of every day. We have learned to exist safely with the Others, but you cannot." Council leader, who was very old and very wise, nodded slowly. "You sacrificed your place in normal society to become guardians." "Yes," said Jinwoo. 50 years ago, when we first made contact with the Others, we had a choice. We could go insane and die, like most species do when they encounter higher dimensional beings. Or we could change, adapt, become something new. We chose to change," added Dr. Dayun, "but the process was not easy. We had to learn to think in ways that normal minds cannot think. We had to learn to exist in multiple dimensions at once. We had to give up being fully human. Commander Subin asked, "Do you regret it?" Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, we can never again live among other species. We can never have normal relationships or normal lives. We are forever alone, forever different. But, he continued, we remember what it was like to be afraid of the unknown. We remember what it was like to need protection. So we choose to be the protectors, even if it means we must always be alone. Dr. Dayun spoke again. The others are not evil. They are simply so different from normal life that contact with them destroys unprepared minds. They exist in dimensions where time flows in all directions at once, where thoughts can become physical objects, where mathematics is alive. We have learned to communicate with them, said Jinwoo. We have learned to understand their way of existence, but more importantly, we have learned to shield you from them. Ambassador Tommen asked, "What do you need from us?" "Understanding," Jinwoo replied simply. "We need you to understand why our space must remain forbidden. We need you to help other species understand that we are not hiding from you out of hostility, but out of love." "Love?" asked Captain Bora. "Yes," said Dr. Dayun. "We love what you represent. You represent what we used to be. You represent the simple joy of existing in 3 dimensions, of experiencing time as a straight line, of believing that reality follows predictable rules. We cannot go back to being what you are," continued Jinwoo, "but we can protect your right to remain as you are. We can make sure that other species never have to face the choice we faced." Council leaders stood up slowly. "What do you propose?" "Expand the exclusion zone around our space," said Jinwoo. "Make it clear to all species that they must never try to enter our territory. In return, we will continue to guard the barriers between dimensions. We will make sure the others never reach your space." "And the crews you have been protecting?" asked Captain Morden. "They will be returned to you within days," promised Dr. Dayun. "They have been well cared for, but they will need time to readjust to normal space. What they experienced in our territory will seem like strange dreams to them." Admiral Kung-ho spoke up. "I will support this proposal. I have seen what the humans have become. I have seen their power and their mercy. They could rule the galaxy, if they wanted to, but instead they choose to guard it." One by one, the other council members agreed. The vote was unanimous. The human exclusion zone was expanded by 10 times its original size. New laws were passed requiring all spaceships to stay far away from human territory. The official reason was still listed as dangerous space anomalies. But now the council knew the real reason. They were being protected by beings who had sacrificed everything to become their guardians. That as the meeting ended, Jinwoo spoke one last time. "We thank you for your understanding. We know this is not easy to accept. Will we ever see you again?" asked Dr. HYO-Jin. Jinru smiled sadly. "We are always watching. Even when you cannot see us, we are there, standing guard at the edges of reality, making sure you can sleep peacefully in your 3-dimensional universe." The communication ended, and the human images faded away. The council members sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what they had learned. Finally, council leader spoke. "Today we learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is to stay away from those you wish to protect, deep in human space." Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the quiet dawn, watching the stars. Beside him, Engineer The Jin monitored the barriers between dimensions. "Do you think they understand now?" she asked. "Some of them do," Jinwoo replied, "and understanding will spread. The galaxy will be safer now." In the space around them, the others continued their eternal dance, moving through dimensions that had no names, and the humans watched over them all, guardians who had given up their humanity to protect the humanity of others. They were alone, but they were not lonely. They had each other, and they had their purpose: to watch, to guard, to protect. Forever.